Hey y'all, what's going on? This is me, J. Marie of J. Marie Booklets. Today I'm coming to talk to you about standard precaution in the health unit coordinator. So, standard precaution is something you can find on the CDC's website, and there's 7 precautions that you have to take when you are dealing with bodily fluids or anything like that. So most of the time we do not deal with that unless you are a HUC and a CNA. So like you go in the rooms, clean the patients, things like that, clean up blood, things like that. Most of the time we don't do that. Most of us don't do that. But there will be times where you will come in contact with those types of issues. And it's not just bodily fluids, it's a lot of things. So when I first when I got my job down here, I interviewed with the director, and he said, what are the 7, or like what are some standard precaution, universal precautions? And I was like, and I knew it, but I didn't know it was a term for it. And so basically is you got to assume that everyone has something. You have to assume that everyone has some kind of disease. So you have to protect yourself against it. So some of the precautions that you take, and these are things that we do. That's why I said I didn't know it was a name for it. But these are just things that you just do when you're in the hospital. So the first one is hand hygiene. So you wash your hands before you go in the room. You wash your hands when you come out of the room. You wash your hands before you touching anything. It's just you wash your hands. You know, you got to do the 20 seconds. You're saying happy birthday to yourself, washing your hands. So that's one of them. The second is the use of protective equipment. So use gowns, gloves, mask. I know where I worked, we did not get fitted for the mask, like the TB mask. We didn't get fitted because you got to have a certain type of mask depending on the size of your face, because you got to wear the right size. So we didn't have to get fitted for that because we should not be going in a room with somebody that has TB. But you know, the other masks, you know, we could wear. And so you got to know these things, because if a person has the flu, you're not just going to walk in the room. You need to put a mask on so that if they're coughing and sneezing, because that's in the air. So if they're coughing and sneezing, you don't get sick. So you need to wear a mask. So you got to assume that everyone has cooties, okay? Okay, we're gonna refer to it as cooties. So you gotta do that when you wear gloves. I always, when I would go into the rooms, like say the patients put on the light and they needed some help, and the CNAs or the nurses were busy, and I would go in there just to see what they needed, because sometimes anyone can help them. I would, like, say they would get done eating dinner, and you know, some people, they want their tray out of the way. You know, dietary hasn't come by yet to pick up the dirty trays, or no one's been in the room. The CNA, sometimes they do it. So I will go in. I always put gloves on when I touch the tray. Well, you like, well, look, I don't know. These people can have C. diff. You know, they can have C. diff, and we don't know. We don't know. And their hands all on. And then I always put gloves on when I would take the tray and put it in the tray bin with the other dirty trays. I always wore gloves. You know, anytime I was in there, I don't know what you have. You can have cooties. I mean, you probably do. That's why you're here. So, you know, you always got to, you know, gown up if there's a chance of blood and things like that. I mean, mainly just the mask and the gloves are what we really dealt with. Gowning up, I know I very seldom gowned up. You know, if I had to put on a gown, I was not going in the room. You know, I think the only time I put on a gown was when all the nurses were busy in the ICU, and the nurse was trying to clean the patient, and she was like, I just need you to hold the patient over, because you know, you roll them on the side and then they will clean the patient. And like, hold on, I gotta put a gown on, because I don't know. I mean, okay, okay. So I think that's pretty much the only time I ever wore a gown. I never really went in a room with a gown on, but you know, you gotta use that protective equipment. Same thing, safe injection practice. Like I said, we really don't be sticking people with needles, but you got to know, you know, every hospital has a needle bin where after the nurses finish, you know, drawing blood or whatever, you put the needle in the bin. So, you don't want needles laying around for the patients or whoever to get stuck with, things like that. And another is safe handling of potential contaminated equipment. So I know like sometimes when a patient was cold and we had the intubation kit, in the kit there was I can't remember what they call it, but it's to hold their mouth open so the doctor could put the tube down their throat to intubate them. And that did not go back in the kit, because we would call for them. We would call, is that right? Yeah, because that didn't go back in the kit. We would call for a new intubation kit. We would call for a new intubation kit, but I think that did not go back in there. I think we put that in the dirty utility because that was in their mouth. Everything we opened the kit, but I really don't know what they did with it. If they reused stuff that was never open, because the kit was open, but I don't think, I know with the crash cart, we always call for a new crash cart, and I just assume because everything wasn't open, and whatever they did down there. But there were some instruments that we did not put back in that kit. Because it needed to be clean, it needed to be sterilized. So we would put it separate. And I guess they kind of knew when we called for that kit to go and get that out of there. I'm trying to think. Because I know I've taken it down there. Because I know where they were cleaning it at. But I'm trying to think. Or maybe it was the other one. Maybe when it wasn't in the intubation kit, because half the time it wasn't there, and we had to run over and get it from the OR. So maybe that's what it was. But I could have swore. So maybe, y'all. Okay, I'm trying to think. So I think the ones that were in the kit, they put them back in the kit and then they took them. But when we ran over, when we opened up the intubation kit and there was not one, and we would go over to the OR and get one, we will put it in the dirty utility. But we ain't touching that with our bare hands. That's been in somebody's mouth. And they probably been foaming at the mouth. Because, people, when they coding, they do all kinds of stuff, and it's in their mouth. So we will put that in the dirty utility. You put your gloves on, and then you put it in there. And then I think it was a bin. We had it in a bin. So, like anything that's been in somebody's mouth or things like that, you put gloves on and you put it where it needs to be. Same thing with equipment. Let's say something was in a person's room, the person it was in isolation, and they had a pump, an IV pump or something. You wipe it down, but then you don't just leave it. You put it somewhere, especially if they were really in isolation, because that's kind of nasty. You put it in a dirty utility, because you wiped it down, but still, that needs to be clean real good. And then, like if you're coughing, someone's coughing, sneezing, y'all, you just don't be hat chewing in people's face. You cover your mouth, or, if you can't, you into your arm. That's what you do. You just don't be coughing and spraying cooties, okay? And then same thing about sharp safety, like syringes. I already told you, you put that in the bin. You don't leave needles, anything like that laying around. If you see it, you put it up. I really didn't see too much of that. And we had a good where they will always come. I think they came, I want to say they might have came twice a week and got the bins and got the needles. So we never really had an issue with that. And then like same thing, sterilizing the instrument. So like I was saying, you put in the dirty utility, crash cart, things like that. We really didn't. Once the crash cart was open, it had to go back down, because they got to replace what was used and what was not used and things like that, and put that lot back on there. But those are the precautions. You gotta assume that everyone has cooties. Okay, that's what it comes down to. You gotta assume everyone has cooties. Okay, your mama, your grandmama. I mean, how many times have we seen people, come visit somebody, the person is in isolation, they just going in the room, and you like literally you have to, like, you need to gown up, because you really can't. You really can't say what people have, because you don't know how they know the person. They could just be friends, You need to gown up. The person has C. diff. I mean, you don't want, they could be a friend. You don't be telling everybody business, but you need to gown up, put some gloves on, put a mask on. And some people just walk in the room. Like, do you not see all? Like, do you not? And then when they come out the room, want to talk to you, ask you a question, all like if you don't go, take all that off, okay, and go back, throw that in, and then come out and talk to me. Don't come out here with all that stuff on. People got cooties, okay? But it's, I guess if you're not in the medical field, you don't understand. You don't understand the severity, and that's how diseases are spread. Especially what we got now. We got the measles outbreak. We got the polio, and it's another disease that is out there. The hospital with the little kids were in, I think it was in New Jersey. They had an outbreak, and all those little kids, they were already compromised with their health, and now there's an outbreak, and then they're dying. There was like 8-10 kids that were dying. So you got to assume that everyone has a disease, or no, let me rephrase that. Everyone has cooties, and you got to protect yourself, especially when you're going into a hospital. But even just in life, you gotta assume, like when if someone were to go down, like say someone were to fall out, and you do not do. I mean, you can. I mean, like I would do it for my family, but like anybody in the street, I would not do mouth to mouth. I would do CPR, but I wouldn't do mouth to mouth. And I think now they're saying that you really don't need to do mouth to mouth, because you got to look and see, make sure they don't have anything in their mouth. But also, I'm not doing CPR on a stranger. It's not happening because they got cooties. You got to assume that's what you're supposed to assume. You're supposed to assume that everyone has a disease to protect yourself. I don't have a problem pumping on your chest. But I'm not going to give a total stranger mouth to mouth. I'm not doing it. I do it for everybody in my family, my mama, my sister, my nephews, grandmama. But some uncles and them, I ain't doing it. But cousins, okay. But people, you don't know, because you don't know what people have. One of the nurses in the ICU, she said that she did not want to work in the ER. She said because people come in here and you're the first line of defense. People coming here off the street with diseases, TB, and you don't know, because they come in here with a pain in their pinky toe, and they got TB, and we've had that issue where not in our ICU, but the other ICU where the patient had TB, and the whole family was up in the room, and the kids in there, and the mama and them, the whole family up in there, friends, neighborhood, all up in there. That man had TB. Okay, I don't know what he was in there for. That was in the other ICU. But I know that man had TB, and they had to quarantine. That was a mess. We also had a situation. It was some kind of they had to like quarantine where the babies are, because all the babies were coming back positive for some disease, all the babies did not have the disease. That's all I gotta say. Okay, it's just look, you gotta assume that people have cooties, okay, and you gotta protect yourself. You gotta take precautions. So when you go in a room with a patient, if they need something, if the person is in isolation anyway, you should put a sign up that say what kind of isolation they're in. They're in contact isolation, airborne, things like that. So you should have that sign up. That should be your responsibility. I know when I worked on the main floor, that was my responsibility. I got up, I threw them signs up. I had the kit with if they needed masks, gowns, whatever. We always ordered that. That was our job, our responsibility. But I know in ICU, we would put the signs up, but the nurses mainly did everything. Like, they would put the table outside the room, because we didn't have, it was ICU, so we didn't have where you can put the kit on the door. So they had tables, and they had bins where you can put the gloves and the gowns and things like that, and the mask. So, for the family, because there was no way you could not see all that in front of the person's room. But some people didn't see it; they just walk in there. But that should be your responsibility anyway. You should know who's in isolation on your unit, that way, so you can order the gowns. Like, if that's your job, like the hospital, that was our job, to order the gowns. And because once we saw that order, the isolation order, we had to make sure that we always had gowns. That was one of the first things I did every morning. Was I would go through and look, because when the nurses are doing their admission, there's a section for them to mark if that patient is in isolation. And even if the patient is not in isolation but comes in isolation, so let's say they come in for GI or whatever issues, and then now they suspect that the patient might have C. diff, so now they're going into isolation, because y'all know what C. diff is. You're pooping everywhere, and that's why because I know people don't wash their hands. That's why when I would get the trays, I would assume that everyone had C. diff, because when I would get the trays, we all know people don't wash their hands, so they use the bathroom, and C. diff makes you poop. You like 10, 15 diarrhea. You in the bathroom, it's coming out. We know everybody don't wash their hands, so that was my issue. I assumed everybody had C. diff. Let me put these gloves on. What you want? Okay, then out there. Okay, throw the gloves away. I'm out. Okay, it's some hand sanitizer. But that was my thing. But so they had it in the system where you can see who was in isolation, and so by that I will order the gowns like first thing in the morning. That was always my thing, because we ain't running out of gowns. I'm telling you that right now. We ain't running out of gowns and masks and gloves. I mean, we always had enough gloves. We always had enough masks. We ain't running out of gowns. Especially, depending on the patient and how the family is. They could have a lot of family, or they can be one of those where the nurse has to be out all the time, so they getting new gowns all the time. So that's just part of being a unit secretary. You have to assume that everyone has cooties. Even if they don't, you gotta assume they do. And because sometimes people do have, they have diseases that you don't know about, because they're there for, a UTI, but they got, because I was told, I thought about doing phlebotomy, and the nurse was like, well, just so you know, if you decide to do phlebotomy, it's where you draw blood. She said, if you decide to do it, especially down here, she said, either have HIV or hepatitis. I was like, you have to tell me that. I already assume everybody got cooties, okay? So, that's not really an issue for me, because everybody got cooties. But she said, just so you know, oh, okay, thanks for telling me. But, just be up on your standard precaution, where if you go in the room, you gotta wear gloves, the gowns, just assume, just figure out what kind of cootie work for you. And keep that in your mind, that everyone has that. And then if they're in isolation, you gotta protect yourself when you get the equipment. Make sure you wear gloves, to touch it. Like if you run blood down to the lab, or go pick up, run specimen down to the lab, they always have it in the bag. Technically, we're not supposed to wear gloves. Like I know you're not supposed to wear gloves around the hospital. Gloves, masks, gowns, you don't wear that around the hospital. But you just make sure that is sealed and good, nice and sealed. If you want to put it in the box, put it in the box. Like get a box and then just carry the box, and that way you're not touching the bag. Like the bag, put it in a box or something that you can carry, and then take it to the lab. And same thing, I used to go get the blood for our unit. It just depended on what was going on. And we get the blood and we go right back to the unit. You can't, no stopping anywhere. But it was a short walk, so I didn't mind it. Just walking down the hallway with blood in a container. But that's kind of, me being in the medical field, I know what it looks like. But if somebody was on the outside, I'd be like, oh my God, they got blood, what's going on, So, sometimes put it in the box and just walk on. Nobody knows what's in there. Just a little old box. It's a box somewhere. So, but that's all I have today on the standard precaution. And you can always go to the CDC. Like I said, that's where I got it. And I remember that from when he interviewed me a long time ago. He asked me that one question. And I was like, wow, I didn't know it had a name. He's like, you got to assume everyone has something. Universal precaution, standard precaution. So, and that's what you got to do. So, if you would like, you can subscribe to the channel. If you got any comments, you can leave them below. You can also follow me on my blog. It's Jamie Marie Booklets. That's where I talk about being a health unit coordinator. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.